So there's been a slight change in the order of the program. We're going to move the third speaker up to the second because our third speaker will be Dr. Timmermans, who just gave the keynote in the room upstairs and will be running down. And then there's an additional change, which is that the next presentation is by Dr. Jess Lowenberg de Boer, but unfortunately he was unable to travel here, so he asked me to present on his behalf. So if you could load the presentation. Yeah, I definitely need the presentation giving someone else's presentation. So Dr. Jess Lowenberg de Boer is one of the people leading the Purdue post-harvest, Feed the Future lab for post-harvest, the Feed the Future Food Processing Lab at Purdue. I'm getting all of those names confused. But anyway, there's a USAID-funded Feed the Future lab at Purdue. And today I'm going to talk about, or he's going to talk about, cost-effective measurement of economic value of post-harvest losses in Africa. So this is sort of the other piece of what Dr. Tran laid out in terms of measuring quantity loss. We're going to now talk about measuring economic value loss. And there's a nice picture up there of what post-harvest loss we talk about, the pretty cowpeas on the right side that have been stored in hermetic storage, and then on the left what happens if you have no post-harvest intervention. So the general objective of this presentation is to summarize cost-effective approaches to measuring the economic value of post-harvest damage, and more specifically to outline the main methodologies for estimating the value of post-harvest damage to food quality, and to provide examples from some studies in Africa that have effectively measured loss in the post-harvest value of cowpea. Could you please start the timer so I don't have to time myself? Sorry. All right. Thank you. So the reason it's important to measure post-harvest loss is often limited to just that physical disappearance, that quantity loss, but the loss in value can be equally important and sometimes even more important. What we heard, and we heard this in a presentation earlier today, damaged food the farmer may still be able to sell damaged food, but only at a reduced price, and sometimes a substantially reduced price. Or if the food is damaged enough and it's unable to go into a food market, the farmer may need to find a different outlet that is either a processing outlet, a livestock feed outlet, but whatever, a lower value market. In addition, there will be additional costs borne by not just the farmer, but the entire value chain from processing labor and other inputs required to turn that damaged food into a food product that is sellable. So when we take a look at measuring that economic value loss for post-harvest, it starts from eliciting consumer preferences regarding food that's been damaged and has post-harvest losses. There's two general approaches to this. There's stated preference methods, where those are hypothetical questions where we ask you, hey, would you buy those damaged cowpeas, and if so, at what price? That would be a stated preference. Now, there are other revealed preference methodologies, and these are non-hypothetical methodologies. Under this category, we've got hedonic pricing, where you go to a market and you buy grain, and you take a look at the quality, you take a look at the price, and you collect that data over a number of seasons and a number of years to get variability, and then you can predict what the price is linked to the quality observed in the market. Another approach is choice experiments, and choice experiments can either be stated preference or revealed preference, depending on whether or not in the choice experiment the person making the decision actually buys the product. And then lastly, there are experimental auctions, where in an auction market you can gather willingness to pay information by auctioning off and having the consumers actually pay and reveal their willingness to pay for the damaged food products, or food products with post-harvest loss. So this is a slide based on Dr. Lowenberg de Boer's research with a lot of partners, published both in 2003 and 2005, taking a look at using hedonic pricing methods, examples of statistically significant retail cowpea price discounts for weevil damage in West and Central Africa. And there you can see, for example, in the country of Cameroon, there's the lowest sort of value loss associated with post-harvest loss damage. In the market in Marua in Cameroon, they found that the average number of weevil holes per 100 cowpeas was 18 holes, and then the price discount per hole was 0.17%. And so you do 18 holes times about 0.2%, you get to overall 1.2% price discount overall. You go to Senegal and you see that the value loss there is much, much larger. In Bombay in Senegal, they had an average of 7 holes per 100 grains, and the price discount per whole was 1.5%. So that translates roughly to that sample having a 10% total price discount. In Toine, it's an even bigger price discount. On average, they had 14 holes per 100 grains with a 2.3% per whole price discount. These were what were observed in the market when they went and they bought cowpeas that were damaged, graded them after it, and linked it to the price, and then did the hedonic pricing analysis. We see similar results when the work by Mishili in Tanzania with common beans showed that there was a statistically significant price discount of 2.3% on average per barukat hole in Dar es Salaam. And then for maize, Mike Jones, who's actually here and will be presenting a poster tomorrow, for his master's thesis research in Malawi was a choice experiment, and it showed that for each 1% increase in maize storage damage would result in a 2.8% to 3.6% reduction in price. Now, it's important to say that we think these are overvalued because this choice experiment was a stated preference choice experiment where it was hypothetical, where they weren't purchasing the maize. But these are still large, substantial price discounts in these markets. So what's the implication of all these price discounts? In a lot of cases, and this is true for PICs, when you sit down and you just do the calculation of the cost-benefit analysis, do you adopt this improved storage technology that's going to maintain higher value? If you just look at it in terms of preventing quantity loss, it may not pan out. That cost-benefit adoption equation doesn't pan out sometimes. Once you add in the price discounts that are realized by the farmer when they go to sell that product and they have not just quantity loss, but value loss as well, that can entirely change the equation of whether or not adopting that improved storage technology is affordable and makes sense from a cost-benefit perspective. So when we think about the Purdue improved cowpea storage and that PICS bag, part of the reason that project has been so successful is that it started in 2007 in West Africa across 10 countries to introduce the PICS bags. And this was building on a very clear understanding from Purdue University and all of our partners in West Africa of what the value losses were associated with cowpeas and post-harvest damage. There had been a bean cowpea crisp where basically 25 years of research, many journal articles documenting these price discounts in the marketplace that translated into economic analyses that clearly showed that PICS bags were profitable for farmers, and a lot of that profitability came from avoiding that value loss from the price discounts for low-quality cowpea in the market. So in terms of methodological observations, we've got those three choices. Hedonic pricing studies, they're relatively inexpensive and easy to implement, but they usually require several years of data. So they take a fair bit of time. If you are in a local market in a developing country, you can go and just every week go and buy some of the grain and observe the different qualities and observe the different prices. And once you've collected enough data a couple years in, you can do the analysis and figure out these price discounts. Researchers also use choice experiments and experimental auctions, largely because they provide much quicker results than hedonic pricing. But in all of these cases, the results from both the auctions and the choice experiments are going to be a little bit sensitive to the implementation and the design of the choice experiment and the experimental auctions. Lastly, stated preferences are easy to obtain. It's really easy to go and ask someone, hey, would you like to have, what would you like to pay for this grain? But a lot of times when we go back and do a revealed preference study to try and match it up with the stated preference study, we find that the stated preference is largely overflated and it doesn't match out. It's, I guess the best analogy in stated preference versus revealed preference, it's like, hey, would you like a Ferrari? I think everybody would say yes, right? But it's like, well, would you like to pay, and I actually don't even know what a Ferrari costs, but would you like to pay $100,000 for a Ferrari? All of a sudden, maybe 100 people said yes, they wanted the Ferrari, and maybe 2 are going to be willing to pay for it. So that's sort of the difference between stated preference and revealed preference. So in conclusion, when we look at this space, we know that accurate estimates of price discounts for grain damage and storage are often key to the economic feasibility of introducing new storage technologies. And then when we take a look at different methodologies, hedonic pricing is relatively inexpensive to do and easy to implement, but it requires several years of data. And a lot of us are pretty impatient about making a difference and we want results faster. So alternatively, there's choice experiments and experimental auctions that will provide those quicker results than hedonic pricing, but then those results are sensitive to implementation and analysis. All right, I think we have about 2 minutes for questions, if there's any questions on this topic.
It's not clear to me the criteria for selecting those markets, because you selected in Ghana only 2 markets, and those markets are not major maize marketing centers. So there's too much overgeneralization. You go to select Borega, Tanga, Makola, and then you are estimating, making conclusions based on these 2 data. The data is extremely limited. I wanted to see data collected from major maize markets in Ghana so that we can make meaningful conclusions.
We would love to go and do data analysis in major maize markets in Ghana. I think there are probably some people working in Ghana and have that data. But yes, so there's been a fair number of papers written along these lines, but the challenge in all of these countries is we don't have, you come to a developed country and we have posted discount schedules, so you know exactly how much lower the price is going to be if you have damaged grain. In developing country markets, it's bilateral trade. There's a farmer negotiating with a trader. There's no posted discount schedule. So that's why we have all these analyses trying to figure out what that value loss is. And we do need to have that across different countries to see how do those preferences vary from one country to the next, and just to build that database. I'm going to be a traditional academic and say we need more data. So thank you for that question. Is Dr. Timmermans here? Has he arrived from the room upstairs?